Okay, so the last few weeks, a lot of people have seen my posts about starting my own sourdough starter and making bread from it. And I've been getting a lot of questions. I'm not an expert at this, but I'm having good luck so far. And been reading tons and tons of stuff on the internet, watching lots of YouTube videos. Anyway, I figured I could just show you, hi kitty. Excuse me. I figured I could just show you the way that I've been doing it, and you can see kind of the process. And this takes, about a day and a half from start to finish the way I'm doing it. So today it's Sunday, it's 2:30 in the afternoon. I'm going to get out my sourdough starter, which is in the refrigerator. Now, I started this starter 4 weeks ago, and for the first week, I fed it every day, kept it out on the countertop, room temperature, and let it grow. Let it start forming and creating an active culture. Then after a week, I made a loaf of bread and I started sticking it in the fridge, and I've been pulling it out about once a week since then to make a new loaf. Anyway, let's cut to the chase. This here's my starter. You can see, probably looks, yeah. You see inside there, there's some liquid in there. They call that hooch. And it smells very strange, kind of sweet, a little like alcohol or a solvent kind of almost. But that's okay. This is natural. It's part of the process. We put it in the refrigerator so you don't have to feed it every day. When you refrigerate this stuff, its life processes go way down in speed to where it's still alive, but it's kind of suspended animation almost. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to stir this up. And reconstitute the hooch in with the rest of this. And I started this. All you really need to start this is some flour and some water. Ideally not tap water, because it has chlorine in it, which can retard the action of the yeast, the microbes in there. So I do have about a gallon of distilled water from Dillon's, which is like 69 cents or something for a gallon. And I'm using a Hudson Cream flour. Now, when I started this, I actually added also the juice of one orange. You can also use pineapple juice as a very popular way to kickstart a culture. It's not necessary, but it has a twofold action. First of all, the sugar in the juice helps to feed the microbes and get them really, active right from the beginning. And second of all, the acid in there helps to prevent the creation and the fostering of the kind of microbes you don't want in there. So it worked out really good. So I fed this for a week, and then I made my first loaf. Now I've got this all stirred up. I'm going to feed it, actually. And we're going to feed it. You want about an equal weight of flour and water, and so that usually means about 3-to-2 ratio. 3 of whatever unit of flour you're adding, and 2 of distilled water. I'm just going to use a tablespoon here, right here. This is my favorite. I always use this. This is from right here in Kansas, from the Stafford County Mill, just up the road. You can use whatever you have. A lot of the instructions you find online say, oh, you have to have whole wheat flour, you have to have organic flour, whatever else. All you have to have is flour. Unbleached is best in general because bleach. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and put in 3 tablespoons of this flour. Show you that, I guess. Blip. And then 2 tablespoons of water. I'll set this down here. So this is just distilled drinking water from the grocery store. You get that because it's not hasn't had a bunch of chlorine and stuff added to it. All right, so added that in there, and I'm just going to give this a good stir. Okay. And now I've got that in there, kind of try to scrape down the sides a little bit. I'm about due to transfer this to a different container so I can wash this one. And now that I've got that in there, I'm going to take this rubber band and I'm going to try to position it right around the level of where it is now. And then later today, you can keep your eye on it because this will rise as it warms up and all the yeast and the stuff in there starts eating the flour. It's going to rise. And so that's how you know that your culture is alive and well, is you can actually see it in action. So I'm going to set this aside for now, and tonight I'll come back and start making my loaf, which I will then leave overnight to proof, and then we'll finish the bread tomorrow. Okay, so now it's about an hour later. Just to show you here, you can see we're already having some activity in here. It's growing, and might have to move the camera here so you can see inside, but I'm gonna take you in. See all those bubbles in there? Shows you that there's critters in there alive and thriving. So gotta put the lid back on, and see you again later on. All right, it's one more hour now since that last check-in, and just got this sitting out here at room temperature. The lid on loosely. You don't want it on tight because it's off gassing in there, and you don't want to put a bunch of pressure in there. Pop your lid off or explode your container. But you can see it's getting bubblier and bubblier in there. This is a thriving and active culture. So I'll check in with you again later. Probably not until I'm ready to start putting the dough together later tonight. Well, okay, now it's much later in the evening. It's about, 11 o'clock. I'm getting ready to wind down for bed before too long. So I'm going to start putting the dough together now. This is something you do about an hour before bed. So you can let it rest a little while before you put it where you're going to have it overnight to proof. So here's our starter from earlier today. It's risen, it's kind of fallen back down a little bit, but it's been fed, it's active, it's bubbly. And so now we're going to do things by measure rather than volume. And get out a little kitchen scale. Very useful thing to have if you don't have one. Turn it on. And we're going to make our dough in this bowl. You can use a stand mixer if you want, but honestly, it just takes a little rough mix. It only takes a minute. You do get your hands sticky, but they will wash. So anyway, I got this started here. I've zeroed out the scale, and can you see that? Okay. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to add 50 grams. We use grams. It's what everybody else in the world uses to cook with, and it's very precise. So anyway, it works. Use it. 50 grams of our starter. I'm just gonna dump this right in here. And yeah, 50. That'll do it. And then we're gonna need 375 grams of warm water, which I just so happen to have handy right here. 375 grams. I'm gonna zero this out so we can weigh that. And this is gonna make a really wet, sticky dough too. Keep going there. 375 coming up, almost. And none of this has to be 100% precise. I mean, this is a form of baking technology that's gone back, centuries, millennia even, and this is just to get you in the ballpark of getting an optimal result. Take a spoon, stir the starter together with this. Just kind of a slurry in there. Okay, and now we need, 500 grams of flour, and I'm just using it once again. So we got this zeroed out. This is again all-purpose flour. I love Hudson Cream flour, wonderful Kansas product. Nice people up there, and you know, people all over the country. You know, they envy us for our easy access to this fine product, and you know, people have it shipped to them at great expense in other parts of the country because it's such a wonderful fine flour. Okay, 500 grams almost. We're right up on it, and come on, right there we go, 500 right on the nose. Okay, so I'm going to start to kind of mix this together. I'm going to have to abandon the spoon pretty soon. Go ahead and we're finished with the scale. Go ahead and put it out of the way. And start getting this mixed up. But you're going to have to get your hands in this. There's no two ways about it. And your hands are going to get sticky and gnarly. So it's just part of the deal. Let's stir it up here. Yeah, it's looking good. Coming together. And right now it seems like, oh, that's too much flour in there, but you'll see as it relaxes, this will be a softer, stickier dough than you think it's going to be. Believe me, I've figured this out. This will be the 4th time I've made this recipe by this process recently. So I'm going to flour my hands up here a little bit, try to make this into kind of a rough ball as much as I can. I say it's very, very sticky. It is going to stick to you to some degree. You just have to, you know, let it make you feel like you're one with the bread, you know. Oh, you know what else? There's one other ingredient in here that I almost forgot about. Foolish mortal. You also need a little salt. This is the only other ingredient. Starter, flour, water, a little salt. You only need about 9 grams of salt. It's not very much. Let's go ahead and measure that out. I should have put that in before then. It doesn't matter. We're still in the same process, so. That's 9 grams right there. All right. Go ahead once again. Flour myself up a little bit here and work that salt into there. It's nice and uniform. And there's not a lot of kneading to this recipe. You'll find more traditional recipes that I've made using commercial yeast, non-sourdough, non-starter based bread recipes. I've made tons and tons of those, and most of those require a lot of kneading. This does not really. It's kind of remarkable. I think mostly the deal is the gluten development happens just through time, just the application of time. So just messing with this dough, getting it as nicely incorporated and uniform as I can manage to. Okay, this is about ready to rest for an hour. So what I'm going to do now is wash my hands up here real quick, and we're going to cover this up with a wet tea towel. Not wet, just damp. You just essentially you just want to put a barrier over the top of this so that it stays moist in there and doesn't get that skin on top of the dough. You know how that is. So I happen to have a fresh tea towel right here. It doesn't have to be a tea towel. It could be like a old t-shirt or just, any kind of fabric that'll, stay moist and make that kind of vapor barrier. Here we go. See, I'm going to put it right over the top of the bowl, and we'll leave this for 1 hour, and then we'll come back to it. So I'll see you then. Okay, it's an hour later. It's about midnight. Now this is, what are you beeping about? This is looking like it's softening up a little bit here. Before I do anything else, I'm going to go ahead and put our starter back. I'm going to put it back in the fridge, So I'm going to give it one more feeding real quick, just like we did this morning. dump in 3 tablespoons of flour, and then 2 of the distilled water. All right. Oh. All right, I'm gonna stir this up. I'll stick it back in the fridge until next time I'm ready to revive it and make some more bread. Stick that back in the fridge until next weekend or whenever. All right, now we're gonna work this dough and get it ready to proof overnight. So I'm gonna flour up my hands some here, because again, this dough is quite sticky. And I want to get it all out of here and kind of work it into a ball to what degree it'll let me. It is very sticky and wet dough. You don't want to put a ton of flour on there, just enough to keep it from sticking to your hands. Like having this pretty high hydration dough is part of the deal with this style of bread making. So essentially you just want to start kind of grabbing it and pulling it over itself. You don't want to overwork it really. 15 or 20 seconds is probably plenty time. I'm going to go ahead and rinse this bowl out here. All right, now bowl is clean. Get our dough. That worked into kind of a ball here, and we're going to stick her in there. Now look how big that is. Make note. See that? We're going to cover it back up with this damp towel, and we're going to leave it overnight. Now I like to stick this into my oven, which is off and cold. It's at room temperature right now. It's warm-ish in the house. It's not hot by any stretch, but it was warm outside today, and I had the windows open all day. So if it's really chilly, a good trick is you can stick it in the oven and just turn the oven light on in there. Just that incandescent bulb running will make it just warm enough in there to be a nice warm area to proof stuff. But I think it's warm enough in the house as it is, but I'm not going to mess with that right now. So I'm just going to take this. It's got the damp towel on top, and I'm just going to leave it here on the countertop until tomorrow morning. So I'll meet you here in the morning, and we'll mess with it then. Like I say, it's a little bit after midnight right now. So see you then. Hey, good morning. So we're back. It's about 9:30 in the morning. Had a lovely sleep. I woke up. It's very kind of quiet and dark and kind of rainy looking outside. It's a lovely morning. This has been sitting here since a little after midnight, so about 9.5 hours. You remember what it looked like? Take off the damp towel, still damp. Oh, look at that. Huh? That's a lot more than was in there when we went to sleep, remember? So now what we're gonna do is we just got to make a loaf. And we're just making like what they call like a rustic loaf, freeform loaf. We're gonna put just a teeny bit of flour down here so that it doesn't stick to the counter while we're working it a little bit. Again, you don't want to incorporate too much extra flour into it. Just a little bit on your hands here. I'm gonna go ahead and get this out of the bowl. It's very soft and billowy now. It's got so much air in it from that yeast working all night in there. I need a little baker's scraper. I don't have one anymore. I used to have a ton of them. I don't know where they all went. Get this all out. Get this all out of the bowl. Onto here. I'm gonna rinse this out again too. All right. Let's say just a little smattering of flour to make it a little easier to handle. And then, can you see this? Can you see this from where you're at? Scoot this over a little bit. Can you see it? Okay. And what you want to do here is we just want to kind of gently stretch it out and pull it over itself. Stretch it out and pull it over itself. Turn it. Kind of do like this, Gonna add a little bit of height to it there. Kind of work the gluten just a little bit in there, stretch it out. You know, it's very pillowy and soft. There's a lot of air in there now from all the action of the microbes in there eating the starch and the yeast, or the starch in the flour rather, and burping it out, you know, creating this lovely, pillowy, soft dough. Look at this. How soft that is. This is a lovely dough. I'm just gonna let that sit there for a second. I'm gonna get my bowl ready. Okay, once again, my bowl is clean. What we're gonna do here, I'm going to just give this just one more kind of little work real quick. Can I pull out? Can you see that? Okay. I don't have a really great camera angle in this kitchen. I don't have a tripod, so I'm doing my best. I have a small, horrible kitchen. Anyway. So there we go. It's got a nice ball of dough. Set that down. Now, you're gonna need a second tea towel, a dry one this time. This is clean and dry. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this in that same bowl, poke it down into the bowl, and I'm gonna kind of liberally flour it too. We're gonna put the dough right on top of this towel, and I don't want it sticking to the towel when we come to get it out. So just kind of gently but liberally hit that with some flour in there, and then we're going to take this, give it one more little pinch, form it up, and we're going to drop it in this bowl with the seam side up. We want the smooth side on the bottom, just like that. Now, pinch that together a little better. Now we've got our floured towel with our dough in there. I'm just kind of fold this over there, and I'm going to cover it up. Not tightly, just enough to kind of help make sure it doesn't get too dried out or anything. And I'm going to stick this in the fridge. Now you want to refrigerate this for at least an hour, but you can refrigerate it up to about 6 hours, from what I understand. And I leave it in there all day, and then before dinner time, pop it out, and it'll be ready to go in the oven. So I'm going to put this in there. I don't know, sometime later today I'm going to bake this, and we'll circle back, and I'll see you then. All right, I'll stick this in the refrigerator right now. And this will help set up the form so that it's ready to bake. See you then. All right, you see now I'm turning my oven on. We're going to preheat it to 500 degrees. I know that's incredibly hot. We're actually going to preheat it to 500, but drop it back down to 450 when we actually put the bread in there. And I'm going to show you here. Don't mind my messy stovetop. I have a pizza stone on the very bottom rack, and then this rack here where I'm going to put my Dutch oven is right above that. My first loaf or two, the bottom was getting browner than I wanted it to. And I read some advice that said if you have a pizza stone, it'll help kind of even that heat out there and keep it from roasting on the bottom. And it seems like it really helped. It's not necessary, but it does seem to help me in my case. So I'm using it. It's almost noon, and I'm going to get our refrigerated dough out of the fridge. And we're going to let it sit out here on the countertop and kind of warm up. Just let it be careful here, pulling the floured tea towel off of there. You don't want it to stick if you can help it. Can you see that? There we go. And remember when we put this in there, we made a ball, and we put it in with the smooth top side of that down. So that's on the bottom right now. We're going to flip this over when we're ready to bake it so that that smooth side is on top. So I preheated the oven to 500 degrees. I have my pizza stone in there. Again, not necessary, but helpful for ensuring your crust is more evenly baked. And what we're going to do right now is this. I'm going to take this parchment paper and we're going to cut off a piece. Come on now. That'll do. And I'm going to place it over this so that I can flip it over. So there we go. Get the towel out from there. Dum 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 dum. Ah, look at that. Could have been centered a little bit better. I can actually kind of form it in a little like this, kind of push it over toward the center a little more. Gives it a little more height if you have it centered anyway, like this. Just kind of gently ease the edges in toward the middle. There we go, that'll do. All right, now what I'm going to do is we're going to put this in our Dutch oven. Now, you don't have to have a Dutch oven. You can use you can just put this in there on a pizza stone, this loaf, just as it is. But if you do that, you really need to inject some steam into your oven somehow, like putting maybe a baking tray in there and then pouring some water on it after it's been preheated so that you get a burst of steam in the oven. Because what happens is this crust starts to form pretty quickly once you put it in the heat. And if it forms too quickly, then it will stop the bread from rising because the crust becomes too firm too quickly. If you have steam in there, then that helps allow more rise in your loaf before the crust forms. And so by using a Dutch oven, you keep the moisture that's escaping from this as it bakes inside here with it, inside the vessel. And so it's just like having a little steam oven within your bigger oven. Again, it's not necessary, but it's helpful, and this is the method I've been using. So I'm going to pick this up. I'm going to set it right down inside here and get this paper out of the way. Can you see that? And now I'm going to score it. You can see I haven't shaved lately, but when I do, I use a safety razor with a double-edged blade. And so I keep one of these taped inside my cabinet door for just such an occasion. I could have scored this before I put it in the pot. It just depends on how fancy you want to get with it. I'm just going to do like an X shape here. And you do want to score your bread because this allows it to open up more. Again, you get a little more rise when you cut that top open and allows a little more expansion room. So I'm going to cut it in there with this double-edged razor blade. I'm just cutting an X shape in there. Don't be afraid to get kind of down in there. Come on now. My blade might be getting dull. I'm cutting too much bread. So anyway, you see that I've just cut kind of an X shape in it. You see it? All right, our oven is still preheating. As soon as it beeps and lets me know that it's up to 500 degrees, I'm going to stick this in there, turn it down to 450, and with this lid on. And we're going to bake that for about 20 minutes with the lid on. And I'm going to take the lid off and do it another 20 minutes. And then it should be about close to done then. I might be able to take it out then. It might need 5 to 10 more minutes. After that 40-minute mark, we'll know for sure. We're gonna put her in the oven now. 500 screaming degrees in there, you can really feel it. Dutch oven right in there in the center. And now we're gonna turn this down to 450. And I'm gonna turn the timer on for 20 minutes. And we're gonna take the lid off. All right, now we're 20 minutes in. I'm gonna take this lid off. Careful, it's extremely hot. You see our loaf starting to form in there. All right, I'm gonna do another 20 minutes. One more, and we'll check it again. Okay, we're at the 40-minute mark total here now, and look at this lovely loaf of bread in there. I'm gonna give it a little thump. I think probably could use a little bit more, brown that crust up a little bit more. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm actually going to take it out of the Dutch oven altogether, and I'm just gonna put the loaf back on that middle rack and give it another 5 minutes and check it again. So there it is, put back into the oven, 450 degrees, with just the parchment paper. I'm gonna give it another 5-10 minutes. All right, it's been another 5 minutes. We're at a total of 45 minutes of baking time now, and oh, that's pretty. Now, see, a lot of people would like to let it go probably another 5 or more and get darker and darker, but between me having kids that don't like to chew through super thick crust and my own faulty teeth, I'm gonna go ahead and pull it out there. I'm sure it's baked enough inside, and I like this kind of golden crust anyway. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull her out of there. And voila, there she blows. This is our fresh loaf of bread. You've seen the whole process from beginning to end. It's important now that you let it sit for a while, like about an hour before you cut into it, because I mean there's still baking going on inside this this loaf. And so I'm going to let it sit here for about an hour, and then I am going to cut it open and we can look inside and see what it looks like in there. Okay, it's been an hour now. It's cooled off. It's still a little warm, which is going to be perfect because I'm going to slather some salted butter on this. You can see. Yeah. I say you could bake this another 10 minutes and the crust would just get browner and browner and a little chewier and chewier. If you like it that way, totally do that. But this is done. The whole house smells freaking amazing right now, as you can probably imagine. And I'm gonna cut this open. I've had this cooling for this last hour on a wire rack there, just to keep it up off the countertop. Slice a chunk off of this and see what it looks like. There's a cross section there, part way into the loaf. And you can see that the bottom is not burnt. It's done all the way through. Look at that pretty crumb in there. You know what? This is awesome for just putting some, eating with butter. Awesome for slicing up. I've been toasting it in the broiler in the oven with our breakfast lately with some salted butter on top. Anyhow, I'm gonna put some butter on this. Got my handy butter dish right here. And I say this is still just a little bit warm, so it's gonna make for some good eating, I'm sure. I get some of this salted butter, which butter without salt, it's great in your recipes as a spread. Come on. Oh my God. That's so good. And I've heard some people saying things, pardon me while I chew. I've heard some people saying they would be interested in making this kind of bread if it wasn't so sourdoughy flavor-wise. This is extremely mild. This isn't sour. It's more, like I said, it's more like an Italian loaf. It's very nice, white, soft, mild, chewy, delicious bread. And you saw what went into it. A little flour, a little water, a little salt, and then a starter that I made from practically nothing. So that's the whole process. And the way I've been doing it, there's a lot of different ways to do this, and there's ways there's myriad ways to do this differently, but this is what's been working for me. And you can see how easy it is, and you can do it too. And I hope this has been really helpful. Thanks for watching. Sorry this is as long as it is, but there you go. Good eating. Mm.